we'll get started.
I do think we have had a couple situations over the course of the time we've been together where people have shared things that then afterwards they thought, yikes, I really don't want that recorded. So let's not have this constrain questions that you may want to have of people on their projects. If it turns out there's something that you want not shared, we're happy to not share it. So, but sometimes it is good to just have the recording.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the ability to edit anything out that we need to. So today we are gonna we have three presenters who are going to talk about their work with some innovation funding that was provided by the Kansas Center for Cultural Competency Advancement. Okay, so the objectives today are to hear about the network development projects, learn from colleagues about the projects focused on advancing cultural competency, and then talk a little bit about possible next steps. I think everyone who is here today knows what the Kansas Center for Cultural Competency Advancement is, so I'm not going to spend any time. Yeah?
Jill, can you advance the slides or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, I'm able to.
I'm just seeing the one title slide. So as you're talking about objectives and.
Oh, no one else can see?
I only see the fronts first, the main slide. Or do you all see it?
Just the first, yeah.
Just the first.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for letting me know that. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now I put it, that's interesting. I put it on present mode and
oh, yeah,
it won't let me go forward. Okay. Okay. So again, to objectives, we've already gone through that, and I think everyone knows what the Kansas Center is. These were our network project elements. So throughout the project, we've had topical sessions about cultural competency, some peer sharing. We've had online meeting pop-up sessions, have provided resources. Everyone has shared resources through the Google Share. We've created some network maps to look at our network patterns and have developed some clusters based on interest. And then our focus today is to talk about action learning opportunities, specifically the innovation funds that were provided for the innovation projects. So I'm going to turn over to Kristen.
Sure. This is just another way to look at the year. So about actually this time last year, we had our first info session and did a first set of maps with about, I think we sent the email out to 60-some people, and individuals were part of designing kind of what would it be like to start to come together with colleagues that care about advancing cultural competence. And then in the winter and the spring, as Jill said, we really tapped into either people who were already in the network or people that knew people that were really good at the topic. But everybody was from Kansas, yay! So we had 10 different sessions. We had about 15 different presenters. Every time people shared, we would suck up like a vacuum cleaner and put in Google Docs all the great resources that people used. So I remember Dr. Shirley Dinkle, who is not able to join today, but she had a whole bunch of video clips and resources she used on microaggressions. There were things on transgender, work with transgender patients, aging populations. A lot of the resources that were collected are still available. And then again, we had 11 pop-ups. This last piece of the work was to try to see what happens if a little bit of money is put out there. Does it encourage people to do things, hopefully, that you kind of wanted to do, but it just, like, this gave you a way to jumpstart things. So this is the last piece of this experiment on how do you help peers start to network with one another around what they care about so they can be better resources to each other.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. So we are going to transition into hearing about the 3 projects. Again, we funded 3 projects, and the first project is Lori Soderman's going to present from the Topeka Housing Authority, and she's going to talk about the project that they did to improve health literacy for Hispanic clients. So, Lori, Gigi, and Victoria, I will advance the slides. I know that's a little bit cumbersome, but just, you can just say next and I'll move ahead. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to you, Lori.
Okay, thank you. You can go on and do next. So welcome to the Pine Ridge Family Health Center, which is owned and operated by the Topeka Housing Authority. And as far as we know, it's the only clinic of its kind that is owned and operated by a housing authority. At the housing conference in Kansas in September, we won an Excellence in Housing Award for our clinic. It is built in the Pine Ridge Manor neighborhood, which is the oldest and largest housing neighborhood in Topeka, with approximately 500 residents, and about half of those are under the age of 17. It's a joint venture between the Topeka Housing Authority and Washburn University. It is also a dedicated training site for Washburn D&P students, and we are a nurse practitioner-led clinic. Part of our partnership includes medical and some dental prevention, and future projects are going to include more full dental, mental health services, and vision services. You can go ahead and next. That'd be great. So we have approximately 300 unique patients, about 600 and, well, probably 50 encounters now. Our census is mainly white. We have about a 12% Hispanic population. Emergency room visits have decreased. On our intake form, we ask, if you hadn't come here, where would you have gone? And out of the responses we received, 28% of those would have gone to the emergency room. And what I've noticed is it's not necessarily for emergencies. It can be for things like sports physicals, and that pretty much tells us that the culture is used to using the emergency room as their clinic. We've removed a transportation barrier for a lot of our patients because we are within walking distance. And as a little perk, we have a Pine Ridge prep school right around the corner, and we have been serving as the healthcare facility for them, which makes it easy for parents. They don't have to take time off from work, and they can just come around the corner. Next. So our project was to find a way to translate our healthcare documents and have someone available for patient visits. And we found that with Patty Hernandez Lopez, who is a Link Bonner Scholar at Washburn University. And part of the Bonner program is they have to do community service throughout their time at Washburn. And Patty is interested in going into nursing, so we are lucky enough to have her for about the next 2 to 3 years as a volunteer. And in the summer, she worked part-time in a work-study paycheck share between Washburn University and the Topeka Housing Authority. You can go on. Sorry. So Patty has translated, probably 10 to 15 of our documents, which include health histories for all ages, as well as consent forms and even some Topeka Housing Authority forms for the Spanish population. We've had an increase in Hispanic patients and families who are not residents of a THA resident neighborhood as a result of word of mouth through the Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. We've had referrals We have the large employer resource, which is at the end of the street. We get some of those patients in as well. We do take Medicaid, Medicare, private insurance, and for uninsured residents, we try to hook them up with Health Access, which is through the Shawnee County Medical Society, and it's a service where services are donated, including labs and x-rays at both of the hospitals. We've also had Patty accompany our Hispanic patients on outside referrals when they needed an interpreter. So she's gone to the dentist, she's accompanied for labs and x-rays and for MRIs. And she has always been active in our outside events such as health histories. We had, in collaboration with United Way and the Oral Health of Kansas, we had an event, and Patty served as an interpreter for the families that went through the stations and if they needed that. It's also increased the cultural humility of the staff, because with Patty, we are able to ask questions and learn about how better to serve the Hispanic population based upon their cultural needs. So she has been a real sounding board for us. Next. And that's Patty. We love Patty. And that's all I have, but thank you so much.
That sounds like an amazing project, just being able to get all that information interpreted so that you can better serve the populations in your area. That was a really great use of that grant funding to really support those patients. And once some of that stuff is translated, you won't have to do it again, which is great. Unless it changes. Hopefully it doesn't change. So good job. That's exciting.
Are there a couple other affirmations, like things that you liked, or they're like, ooh, that's cool? We'll start with the woohoo. There might be some questions too.
Well, I really did enjoy going through the translation process with Patty, because I was able to learn some things, and I think it helps me, because Patty's not here every day and we don't have anyone else on site who is Hispanic speaking. Having some of that paperwork in Spanish, I can read the English while they have the Spanish, and so can our nurse practitioner, and it helps the communication be better. We also have a Hispanic speaking person over at Topeka Housing Authority that sometimes comes over, or via phone can help translate when we need it.
Well, I think it's a fantastic project. I think that your clinic is a really interesting clinic developed to meet the needs in that community. I was curious, and it doesn't necessarily relate to the project as much as, are you able to get any kind of grant funding to sustain the clinic?
Well, the initial grant, and that's where the Washburn School of Nursing comes in, and Washburn University, they had applied for a community to classroom grant. And part of that grant was to do community health in a public housing setting. So you couldn't have asked for a better partnership than Washburn University and Topeka Housing Authority. We've also had some help from Advisors Excel here in Topeka, and they actually are paying the nurse practitioner salary for the first year while we get on our feet. We are on track pretty much with our business plan, which was actually created by the business offices or the business students at Washburn. We also had the marketing students take us on as a senior project, so they put together a whole marketing plan. We are now working with the social work department. We are looking to get on-site social work visits for our patients. And then dental and vision, we have a building next door that is slated for that.
Lori,
Yeah, is so fascinating. That is amazing. I hope you guys are going to write this up for publication.
I believe that's on the agenda for Dr. Shirley Dinkle.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gigi.
You know, Lori, I think it's so generous that you used her to go with your clients to other locations and serve the community and serve your clients so well in that way, because sometimes we hold tight to our resources, and I think it's wonderful that you share the resource outside your own state.
Oh, that's the most important thing. We want our patients to be comfortable, and we want them to get the information that they need. And so if that means going out in the community with them, then that's what we're going to do. That's just really important to us. That's the most critical thing.
That's really great. That definitely is a testament to your commitment to your clients.
I love my job.
Well, it shows.
Well, thank you. And we welcome anybody who wants, if you're in town and you want to come over and take a tour, just let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Are there any other comments or questions for Lori? Okay, well, I think we're going to move on to Gigi Sears she's from the University of Kansas Health Systems and is going to talk about a project that she implemented to support military and veteran personnel. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Gigi.
Okay, well, you can advance that slide. I have to tell you, I've been so looking forward to reporting out on what this $500 has turned into at our place. So my project was to really form our first affinity group or resource group in our organization. Many organizations have affinity groups or resource groups for people that share some common aspect of their world, and it's related to retention and job satisfaction, and we didn't have any. And I really wanted to start one, and it's wonderful if they can be organic, but I did it with some intention, and so wanted to start with the veterans. So we were including active duty reservists and veterans, and that's those groups are protected classes, so we could actually obtain a list of people that had those qualities from HR. So we sent out an invitation to a first meeting that was held during the week of 4th of July. And you see on the right a sample of our next meeting's flyer. So we incorporated a theme, and so it's for our veterans group. So advance the slide. And so we've used the money for food, but what that food has turned into is really kind of wonderful. So the first meeting, we had 75 attendees from multiple locations and different backgrounds. And we threw an Independence Day barbecue. And we had people from all branches, all backgrounds, and all work areas, or many work areas that attended. And we started the sessions with everyone standing up and saying what branch of service, how long they served, and a little bit about themselves. They had some time to network. And then we went to a brainstorming session, which is on the next slide. So the goal is for an affinity group to definitely make it what the group wants it to be. So at that first meeting, we had a brainstorming session, what they could see this group becoming. And this was some of the things that they discussed during that meeting. They wanted to learn how to translate their military skills into civilian terms for resumes, because many of them had skills that they simply didn't know how to put on a civilian resume. They wanted to learn more about how to determine the best health insurance, whether it was I can't think of the one from the military or a health system. They wanted to create a health system military honor guard. They thought about, they wanted HR to understand military leave better than they do, because sometimes some of them said that when they had to go on military leave, the requirements didn't really align with what they had as far as documentation to provide. They wanted veteran outreach, not only to their colleagues, but also to patients. And they have a really exciting thing they're doing in that regard. They wanted to learn more about military disability rights and privileges at KU, at the health system. They wanted to create a veterans organization that provided care packages to vets who are admitted. They wanted brand flags at the entries of the hospital. One person talked about they wanted to set up an internship program for the Air Force biomedical engineers at KU, support mentorship and therapy for PTSD and how to deal with work triggers, and they wanted to develop subcommittees and get in action. So next slide. So from that, I sent a follow-up survey before we met again. And so next slide. Question 1, was this a valuable use of your time? And 100% said yes. Next slide. We asked if they would return, and some of these people were traveling some distance to get there. So we return schedule permitting, 100% of the respondents said yes. Then of those things that they identified in the brainstorming session, we wanted to know what they were most interested in. I really guided them to pick 3 areas. And so those were our results on the areas. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Next slide. We asked if there were any other interests that they had. So it was a free-form questions. And at our health system, we have a volunteer t-shirts. When our employees go out in the community to volunteer, we call them hero t-shirts. And they wanted to have special hero t-shirts for veterans that were getting out. So they wanted a flag on the veterans t-shirts. They wanted to host a veteran benefit event, sort of like an education fair, but veterans benefits. They really wanted the health system to be known as an organization that honors vets when patients come in that are veterans. They wanted to be not only vet friendly, but also to be an organization that honors that service. And the way they talked about doing it was recognize veterans and active duty patients with a flag on the door. They wanted to have a veteran booth at health system career fairs. They wanted to help others with resume writing. They wanted to volunteer at Christmas in October, which is when we have employees go out to do home repairs in Rosedale, which is this little area that we sit in. And they wanted to be mentors to other veterans. Next slide. I asked about the best time of the day. They liked noon, but because I think they liked the food that you all provided, so thank you for that. Next slide. So at that second meeting, we talked about those survey results and the top areas. And so we came up with the areas of focus. So they wanted to create a way to recognize patients who have served if they self-identified that they were vets. They wanted to outreach to new hires. They wanted to put together volunteer events for the veteran group. And they wanted a Veterans Day celebration. Next slide. So here's your progress report. This is what your $500 has done, and we're very grateful. So our next meeting is on the 4th of October. So what they have done so far is they've created a SharePoint site. They did, in fact, get a Veteran Hero t-shirt. It just went live this week, and it's the health system t-shirt, but it has a flag on the sleeve. So that's so exciting. Christmas in October is on October 20th. It's a Saturday, and we have the health system has taken on 20 homes to repair in this area, and the veterans are staffing 5 of those home repairs. And then Wreaths Across America. This one's going to make me cry, I think. So Wreaths Across America. Next slide. I think I have a photo in it. Wreaths Across America is a national program that is dedicated to making sure that there's wreaths on graves at the National Cemetery. And last year, I coordinated a hero event up there, and it was so meaningful. These photos are from last year. They come in with trucks, and they have all these wreaths, and volunteers show up and put the wreaths out for the month of December. And so the veterans really wanted to own this year, and so we requested a $10,000 wreath sponsorship from the health system, which we've been granted. And the veterans want to match that. They're able to set up a fundraising page on the Wreaths Across America site for themselves, and where individuals that aren't able to go out and lay out wreaths can sponsor wreaths. And we had 76 people go out last year. This it really touched a lot of people. So they're setting that up and hope to have that a matching amount for wreaths. There's 36,000 graves at Leavenworth National Cemetery, and that probably will only get 2/3 of them. So we're very, very hopeful. And then they'll be out in December laying out those wreaths. Next slide. Oh, one more. So this is our salute to you for the generous grant that has brought the veterans together. And I hope that you're very proud of what your $500 has done.
Well, thank you very much, Gigi. This is also a fantastic project. And
oh, I didn't. Can I say one more thing? I had a note here because this happened afterwards. You know, because the $500 was only going to go so far. Several weeks ago, I'd met with our fund development folks about how to continue to fund this resource group, and also another group that I've since formed, which is the Pride Resource Group for our LGBTQ colleagues. And fund development really liked the idea of asking employees. We have a Be the Bridge campaign, which has often been focused on employees giving to build something. And they decided they wanted to incorporate funding the Veterans Resource Group and the Pride Resource Group for employees to be able to give to that and sustain that over time. And that went live this week.
that's great.
I know, right?
That's really great. Well, my dad was a Vietnam vet, and actually we had his interment last week at the National Cemetery in Leavenworth. So as his daughter, I think this is fabulous.
Well, I hope you'll consider joining us for when we go up to put out wreaths. I think you would be very touched by that. Many of us that are from military families, it just was a very humbling experience and really tugged at everybody's heart. So I hope you'll consider joining us when we go out in December.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Great project. It was a really good use of funding, and it was kind of nice it was at least able to get this project started. And it's kind of a catalyst to keep things going, and that's exactly what, getting the grant funding's about, helping initiate things and getting that support. And I'm just glad that you're able to bring these people together to do these positive things in the community. So great job.
They are a group in action.
Yes, I see.
That's fabulous.
Good deal.
I think, Lori, you had a comment?
Oh, I just think that it's fabulous, the whole project, and how wonderful that it's taken off with such enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
I also think it's wonderful, and I have a son and son-in-law that are in the military, and they have served both in Iraq. Also, I think this is really good because many times in the community, people want to engage in the community and support, but we really don't know how to do that or what to do. And just to even see it gives you that idea, and then it's something easy that people can get engaged with and help with that. So it's a great initiative to get this through in the community.
Thank you, and thank you for your family's service. I've been very humbled because I come from a military family, and I also had a son that's a combat vet, and I felt sort of like an imposter or being their leader. And I told them that my intent was to step out so they could lead their own group, and they asked that I not step out, and they are allowing me to continue to be their facilitator, which I'm very touched by that. When they introduced themselves and their service, I told them that I raised a Marine, and so I had 18 years in already, and that was probably my tenure.
Well, Semper Fi to your son.
Thank you, and gratitude to your family.
Any other questions or comments for Gigi? Okay, I think then we are going to turn it over to Victoria Haynes, who's from, I'm sorry, Victoria, I have a typo in here. I'm going to take it out.
Okay.
From Mid-America Nazarene University School of Nursing, and she's going to talk about her collaboration with an alternative school to foster healthy living among urban youth.
Thank you.
There you go.
So with this project, I have a not-for-profit that me and my husband started called the Prime Organization. You can go to the next slide. And what the organization does is we just started it out of, just thinking about things in the community and different ways that we can help and give back. And so we decided that a lot of the schools that we went to and a lot of the community schools do not have good infrastructure or structuring for mentors. There's some school districts that do offer mentoring services for the students that kind of goes beyond just the curriculum that they get, but they can't get constant volunteers or they can't get funding to support it. So we started our not-for-profit with nothing and just said, you know what, we're just going to dedicate our time once a month, go out and, mentor these kids on different healthy habits or different tools to be successful, whether that's writing a resume because they want to get a job in high school or how do they apply for college. Some of those things are not necessarily things they get in the curriculum, but they need it to be able to be successful. And so with this organization, we provide positive mentors who can inspire, mentor, and empower the minority youth to succeed academically and socially. So we open this up to typically high schoolers, even though we said grades 8 through 12. And then our vision is to really just help inspire these next generation of leaders. And so we collaborated with an alternative school in the Kansas City area, Hickman Mill School District. And they're predominantly minority students who are at promise, because we don't really say at risk anymore, in the urban core. And they had a mentoring group that was supposed to be provided through the district, but they've never been able to get any volunteers. So these are pretty much students that have been kicked out of the school district and pretty much have nowhere to go. Everyone's given up on them. And so they're trying to get their credits and things together so that they can go to college, so that they can get their high school education. And so their mission is to provide personalized evidence-based educational services for these students in collaborations with their family and the school districts. So once they leave the school district, they go to this alternative school to figure out what curriculum they need in order to get those credits that they need to graduate. Next slide. So what we did is we held an education session with them to teach them like different healthy habits and different ways to keep their bodies healthy, whether that's through exercise, nutrition, and things like that. So we ended up having 16 students total for our session, and most of them were high school juniors. About 15 of them were African American, and only one of them was a white student. And the male and female ratio was about half. So there was the same number of female and male students in this group that we had. Next slide. So with the education session, we used the funding to buy supplies, books, and resources. So we were able to provide each student with this eating and exercising for good health handbook. And what we did was we took this and went through the material, which is really kind of user-friendly, easy to read, and it even had like quizzes and resources that we can go through with them. And so we took about 30 minutes to focus on eating and nutrition, and then another 30 minutes to focus on physical activity. And so before we did the physical activity part, there was a quiz that was in the book, and we just kind of had the students go through and do that. And surprisingly, the students did pretty good. We had one that had a perfect score, 2 that had 9 out of 10, and then 4 had 8 out of 10. So if you're looking at kind of your benchmark at 80% being passing, a lot of times in nursing, that's kind of our criteria, at least for graduate nursing. Most of the students did pretty good with the quiz to test their knowledge. Next slide. So in summary, what we learned from doing this education intervention is that the youth really want to learn, and they do have a good knowledge base, but a lot of it was just kind of dispelling myths that they heard or just clarifying information. And that looks can be really deceiving, because we had one student that we thought just wasn't paying attention, didn't have a care in the world for what we were talking about, but then he ended up scoring 9 out of 10 on the quiz. So you really can't tell just based on what the student, is the body language they're displaying. And then you have to be relatable. The students really like that we also had grown up in the same school district that they were in. We knew the area. We had were very familiar with the different classes and different resources that were available and that weren't available. So they really enjoyed that we were really relatable to them. Some of the challenges that we have is really keeping them engaged. They all have their cell phones, they have headphones. So really finding topics that are of interest to them and keeping them engaged. And then sometimes you'll get an off-the-wall response from someone. So just kind of redirecting and refocusing the education session was a little bit of a challenge, but we were able to do that well. And then dealing with the students that were disinterested or reluctant to participate. Some of them were kind of slow to warm, but once we kind of did some of the physical activity and got them up and stretching and stuff, they were more interested. So we were able to overcome those challenges. So how to fund supported cultural competency? Well, the education was really focused on health and wellness and nutrition. And we try to focus on conditions that were seen commonly in minority populations. A lot of the students reported that either they were lactose intolerant or their family were, or had diabetes or high blood pressure. So we talked a lot about eating, watching sugar intake and different things that contain dairy that they might not have known about. And just me being lactose intolerant myself, it was really relatable to them to be able to tell them, okay, this is what my diet consists of, and this is different things that you can avoid. And the resources in the book that we gave them were really good as well. And one of the other resources you'll see in one of the slides was a bookmark that had a bunch of different ideas for healthy snacks and things that they can eat when they get home from school or just in between practice and things that they had going on. We also discussed a lot of the disparities in healthcare, just so that they were aware of it. A lot of them were very aware of it and could even bring up experiences with some of their family members that they've experienced, and just with access to care and having insurance or using the emergency room for different things, like you were kind of mentioning, Lori, going to the emergency room and getting sports physicals. I mean, we would think everyone has a primary care provider or would have access to that, but a lot of people don't. And then just personal experience and relatability with the mentors, and then just the tangible tools. So they were all able to go home with that handbook. We were able to provide healthy snacks for them and give them the bookmark that gave them ideas on other healthy snacks that they can use. And then we got kits from the Let's Move campaign. They have activity sets that have jump rope, a water bottle, and have different tools and resources they can use to help stay physically fit. And they're things that they had never had before. So even just having this session, a lot of them were like, this isn't something that we got in school. You have a nutrition class, teachers can't really teach, or they're trying to really work on discipline and behavior issues, so they don't really get the content that they need. So how can others benefit? We definitely need more education and mentoring for these at-promise youth. The resources are not there. Lots of schools want to have these mentors, but either aren't able to support them financially, or they aren't able to find those resources. And so me and my husband are kind of a two-person team. We do have other professionals and colleagues that we network with. And we actually have a friend that's with Amazon. She's one of the HR directors there. So we're trying to get her on board so she can come with us and do one of the education sessions on like interviewing and resume writing and kind of preparing for college and goals to be successful. The school curriculum is limited, so mentoring services that can offer academic stuff and things to help them socially are definitely needed. And with all the behavioral issues that we see in classes, it makes it really hard for the teachers to teach and really hard for the students to learn. So having these extracurricular sessions for the students were really, really helpful. And it didn't take much time out of their work day, because the way that they format the alternative schools, they do a lot of modules on the computer, so it's self-paced. So taking the hour didn't really disrupt anything that they were doing with the courses, and they were able to get that extra attention and time on these subjects. So that's what the grant funding was used to support. Next slide. So that's a picture of me and my husband, and that's before the session. And the next slide just kind of shows one of the pictures of doing some exercises that they can do that didn't involve weights or any special tools. So really just kind of getting them up and getting them active. Next slide. And there's more pictures of that. Then in the next slide is when I was handing out the snacks and the Let's Move resources for them. That was kind of on their way out, because a lot of those, if you give that to them in the beginning, you'll have food everywhere and stuff everywhere, and it'll be really hard to keep them engaged and focused. So it's kind of something they were able to get at the end of the education session. Next slide. And the last slide just kind of shows the kit, which is really nice. So they get the water bottle, and we discuss about how much water they should drink a day and how many bottles they should try to strive for. And a lot of them were like, yeah, it's kind of hard because if you don't have a water bottle or if you're not going to the water fountain. So it's nice to give them something to help them, encourage them to kind of develop some of these healthy habits. and then the jump rope. And then there's some more stuff in this little packet that gives them information on how much activity they should have a day, and different information on good health behaviors. So that all of the participants were able to get those. And I think that's it on the slides. I want to thank KCCCA and bless you guys for the grant money that really helped support our organization, who has no funding whatsoever. We're hoping to do some fundraising so that we can continue these sessions, and we do plan to do that. It's just really getting the resources to kind of support some of the giveaways or some of the material you want to do with the students. So we're hoping to do some fundraising and get some support for that as well, because of course district money is very limited. But really it's just, at this point, we're really just wanting to give our time as much as we can. And we always try to provide healthy snacks for them for the sessions. And so that really helps support that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. I think your project was also fantastic. I think all three of the projects were just really wonderful. You know, I was curious, and I know from a mentoring perspective, that requires adults or, you know, perhaps college students who have that maturity to be a good mentor. But I was wondering, for some activities like this about healthy habits and physical activity, would there be an opportunity for kind of that training the trainer, where you could train some of their peers to do some of that kind of education if there were situations where you may feel like being an adult, you're not as relatable to the students, but their peers would be?
I think that would be. I think there would definitely be some opportunities for that. The thing is just identifying the students that would be willing to do that.
Yeah.
And then when you're dealing with an alternative school, you've got more of the behavioral issues, and you've got more of the students that are a little bit of a challenge. So you have maybe a few, and usually the director will say, okay, these are some of our all-star students that, you know, really don't need to be here, but they might have, you know, depending on their circumstances with their school, are not able to return or can't return for that particular school year. So I think that'd be a great idea. It's just we're limited in the number. So we might have one or two of them that could help with that, and just really training them and giving the tools they need to be able to facilitate one of the sessions.
Right.
So right now what we've kind of focused on is just really finding other positive mentors, and we, you know, screening them, just making sure everyone goes through a background check and stuff before they come and are working with the children, and just kind of doing that. And like I said, right now it's just me, my husband, and we have another mentor that we do, but it's only just one alternative school. I mean, ideally, we'd love to be able to offer these resources to many of the school districts if we're able to get more mentors involved. But I like the kind of teach the teacher thing. It'd be a great leadership thing for some of the seniors to possibly get involved in. And that would be a great idea, especially if we're able to expand to some of the other school districts that weren't necessarily alternative, but just maybe Blue Springs or Raytown or some of the other school districts with the senior classes.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe even some of the local colleges, if those students are looking for community activities
Right.
as well.
It's a good idea. I mean, it's definitely something I can discuss here at MNU, because we do have some of the students, and I know that some of the Student Diversity Council students here love to kind of get involved with some of that stuff. But the thing is really time. They're stretched so thin with, and most of our Student Diversity Council students here are all athletes. So they're managing athletics and coursework and jobs a lot of the time. So putting one more thing on their plate has been hard, because we've even been trying to just do some regular volunteer activity with like the Johnson County NAACP, and that's been really hard coordinating that with the students here. So a lot of times when you have college students, they're spread really thin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're busy. Any
questions? Well, thank you guys. Thanks again to KCCCA for your support.
Victoria, this is Lori. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say what a wonderful project you guys have. And I will keep my ears and eyes open for resources that would fit with what you're doing.
Thank you so much. That would be great.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you so much.
Well, and thank you, Lori, Gigi, and Victoria for sharing today and taking, working on these projects, because I think they've all been really fantastic, and it's your passion for them and how you want to continue to support your communities, I think is awesome. So I'm so glad that you were willing to share with the larger group about the projects.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Victoria, I just want to say I think you were so insightful to incorporate an actual tangible way for them to get exercise as part of their takeaway. I think that was really brilliant, and a lot of people probably would not have thought of that, so well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I also practice what I preach. I was like, look, guys, I work out 4 to 5 days a week and I eat well. So I'm not just telling you to do this stuff just because this is what I do. I've got the family history that you're talking about. I've got the same factors that are against me as well, but these are the different things I'm doing to modify it, and you can too. I carry my water bottle around. I jump rope all the time, and these are some tools that you can do that don't require even a gym membership that you can do to help stay healthy. So they're really encouraged by that. So it's exciting. It's a passion, and I'm glad just to serve the community and give back. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Well, I think if anyone doesn't have any comments or questions for our 3 presenters, we are at the end of the session. In terms of looking ahead for the KCCA, our funding actually has ended for our project, and so maybe just doing a little bit of brainstorming in the last few minutes that we have with regard to ideas for maybe how to sustain the KCCA in the future without having a lot of financial resources. Is there any kind of interest in even, perhaps quarterly meetings or identifying opportunities for continuing education? So I think just opening up for any ideas, questions, or anything that anyone has. Kristen, do you want to add?
I hope to continue to meet with this group. I've learned so much from all of you, and it's been very enlightening. So I hope we can stay together in some format.
Yeah, me too. Do we have any other comments? I'm gonna quit sharing. There, now I can see better.
I agree with Gigi. It's been really eye-opening, and it's nice to know the other people out there doing this good work. And I wouldn't mind getting together again.
I agree. I think it would be helpful, especially with the website up and going and just figuring out how to maintain it. If there's any scholarly work that we want to contribute to it, or any more of the blogs, or any good research that we find, just really keeping that community going, because when you have that virtual center, you don't want it just to become dormant because the grant funding has ran out. You want it to keep being active, and you want to encourage students and people that are out in the field doing the work to contribute to the website as well. So really keeping that community going is important, and I'm more than willing to continue to meet and stay engaged.
Well, thank you all. That's great to hear from you. And definitely, if anyone has ideas about new resources, if anyone has ideas for a blog post and you want to write, a couple of paragraphs that we can post on the blog, that would be fantastic. I know in working with students, I'm always looking for opportunities for students to be involved in kind of real world work. And so if there's ever an opportunity for students at any of your programs out there, for nurses and any of the organizations who are interested in some type of project, I love incorporating students into our work. I actually am working with a group who are going to put together a toolkit about unconscious bias that we'll be able to post on the website. So
That'd be amazing.
Great.
Yeah, they're really excited about the project as well. So maybe what we could plan for are some quarterly meetings, just to stay connected and maybe brainstorm what 3 months might look like for maybe blog posts and updates to the website and who might contribute to that.
Yeah.
Again, I know we're all really, really busy, but just even some simple, just a short two paragraphs about a topic with a link to a resource might be really helpful, something that we can do. I always feel like I have to write a novel if I'm going to write something and remember that people want short clips.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think that's great.
Okay.
I would like to say, I'm sorry.
Oh, I just said thank you.
Yeah. I would like to say, I think I put this in the chat, but I guess I'm really, really inspired by the projects. Sometimes the idea isn't that they're perfect, that you just try something. And I just think with such little amount of money, such amazing things happened. And so I would really like to think about, with any of you, like, how could there be a pool of money so that every year there could be innovation projects, and then maybe they're shared, Gigi, like at your conference, and they could be shared virtually for people. But I mean, I just feel so inspired by hearing each of these 3 projects, that just imagine, if we had 5 a year, and then you just would get to hear, what do people try? And if it's not perfect, that's okay. The idea is that you're trying things. And so it just seems like, I know that Reach Healthcare Foundation has made their commitment for this, but I'd like to think about, we're not talking about a lot of money here, and we can already show, like, oh my goodness, look how this has rippled out. So I'd be really interested in thinking about, who would we ask for a pool of dollars to just try for the next 3 years? We want to do 5 innovation funds a year, small, and because this feels really different to me, even though we've had great learning sessions in the past. They were a little more like content-y. And this, so it just feels different. It feels like people aren't like passively listening. They're like getting inspired, like, oh my gosh, how can I take this kind of an idea? Or, it's the stuff that for sure I'll share at the dinner table tonight. So, I
agree. This has felt much more action focused, and I think it's because we listen to what you guys have done, and that's always inspiring. I think it's the way I feel when I come back from a conference and have learned what other people have done. It's like, oh my gosh, all of this incredible work that's being done. So I think, Kristen, that's a great idea, and maybe we can all think about, are there organizations who maybe have some?
I think ANCC has their innovation grants that they give.
Okay.
Are you all familiar?
I'm not. Because honestly, with our not-for-profit, I mean, we're not huge, and really all our funding goes just to provide resources for the students. And with just having the Alternative Center, the 500 is nice to support, you know, those small resources that they need and healthy snacks. So it's not like you need a lot, but you can do so much with just that little.
Right. Well, Gigi, what is the ANCC? Is that once
What
a
do they
year?
call it? The innovations. They put out a call. I believe it's quarterly. And some of my friends have gotten it. Hang on. Hold, please. And I'm going to have to drop off here in a second, but what is it? ANCC Innovations. And it's the local ANCC.
Okay.
Well, maybe people could look it up or try to be in touch and share.
Definitely.
And again, I'm happy to think a little bit, Jill, with you and maybe June, like, because I'm almost imagining instead of one place, like, are there 3 funders or 5 funders that we could say a network of people came together? And so all we want is for every one of these funders to say, we'll give, you know, $5,000, and we've got 5 funders, and all of a sudden we've got $25,000, and there's ways to do little bits of.
Yeah.
There's compelling stories just with the 3 projects that you did, and I think there's like research and examples of other places that have used innovation funds, but you've tried it now and you've seen really incredible ripple. So like now would be the time to say, okay, we went 3 years of this little bit.
I'm sorry, I have to sign off, everyone. I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Gigi. I need to sign off as well. It was great with everybody.
Thank you very much. Well, I will do a follow-up email and get something scheduled. Maybe in October, so we don't have too much time go by and to not lose any momentum. And maybe that can be a brainstorming session for some next steps and where we could look for funding.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining today. Kristen, do you have just a few minutes?
Oh, yes, I do. And thanks, Pamela and Angie and Laura. We didn't get to hear your voices, but it was nice to know you were on the call. So, and Vicki, it was nice to hear you that once. So,
and thanks, Vicki and Pamela.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
And then you can stop the recording.
Oh, yeah.